Alright, so we should be streaming live now. Now that that's presenting, let me pop up the relevant tabs. So we should have it now, so that we are showing 11. Let me just double check on my phone whether we are streaming. Yes, we are. Okay. Alright, looks like we're good to go. Alright, so we're at question 11. And the question is going to be x minus 4 squared is equivalent to. So we have x minus 4 squared. Side note. A minus b squared is equal to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So when we have x minus 4 squared, it's going to span to x squared minus 2 times negative 4, or 2 times 4 is 8, times x is 8x. So we're going to have x squared minus 8x. Then 4 squared is 16 plus 16. So that's going to be option C. Let's move to question question 12. We have x squared plus 5x minus 24, and after we have x squared plus 5x minus 24, what we're going to do is factor this. So we need values that add to 5 and multiply to negative 24, and those values are going to be x plus 8 and x minus 3, and to check, 8 times negative 3 equals negative 24, good, and 8 minus 3 equals 5, so that's good as well. So this is the factored form of x plus 8 and x minus 3. Problem number 13. No, sorry. X plus 8, x minus 3. Alright, so that's 12. What's 13? We have 2x minus 5x plus 2. They're both 12. 13 we need to factor. Alright, so the only 2x squared minus 5x plus 2. So the only way to break up 2x squared is to look at this as 2x and x. So we're going to need numbers that multiply to positive 2. So negative 1 and negative 2. Let's check. Negative 1 times negative 2 does equal positive 2. So that's good. And then let's also check by distributing. So 2 times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 2 is negative 4x. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 1 times x is negative x, and negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. And this can simplify. Negative 4x minus x is negative 5x, so we have 2x squared minus 5x plus 2. And that's going to be our answer. So therefore, we've checked, it's correct, so our factored form is 2x minus 1, x minus 2. 14, we have x minus 7 over 2 plus x plus 2 over 6, and we need to find an expression equivalent to it. And one thing that we can do is you can get any term and make the term equivalent by multiplying it by 1. But if we multiply it by 3 over 3, that's going to give us a common denominator while still making it equal to 1. So that's going to be equal to 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. So 3x minus 21 over 6 plus x plus 2 over 6. And so we can add across the common denominator. So 3x plus x is equal to 4x, and negative 21 plus 2 is equal to negative 19. So we have 4x minus 19 over 6. And that's going to be option B. Oh, sorry. Hopefully that allows you to see. Okay. I want to adjust my doc cam for a second. Alright. 15. Alright. Expressed as a single fraction, 3 over x minus 1 minus 2 over x is equivalent to, so for 15, we just need to find an equivalent fraction by finding a common denominator. So we have 3 over x minus 1 minus 2 over x. We can find what this is equivalent to by getting common denominator. So we can common denominator multiplying the left fraction by x over x, and multiplying the right fraction by x minus 1 over x minus 1. What is this going to give us? Well, 3 times x is 3x, and x times x minus 1 is just x times x minus 1, minus 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 over x times x minus 1. We have a common denominator, so we can subtract 2. So 3x minus 2x is x, and 0 minus negative 2 is positive 2. So we have x plus 2 over x times x minus 1. And that's going to be option C. Moving on to 16. Sorry. Moving on to 16. Which represents, we need to represent x squared minus x minus 6 over x squared minus 5x plus 6 in simplest form. So let's factor the top and the bottom. And in order to factor, what we'll have to do is look at what multiplies to negative 6 but adds negative 1. And that's going to be x minus 3 and x plus 2. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. What multiplies to positive 6 but adds to negative 5? Well, that's going to be that could be we need that. Sorry. I need to get the notation right so it's clear. That's going to be x minus 3 and x minus 2, okay? Because negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5, and negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. So x minus 3 over x minus 3, these can cancel out. This can simplify to x plus 2 over x minus 2. And that's going to be option choice A. $17. So we have the square root of 84. We need to simplify to a root b. And while this may seem confusing, this is essentially just saying factor out or take out all perfect squares. Take out perfect squares. So let's break up our terms, factor our number within the square root. So the square root of 84 is equivalent to the square root of 42 times 2, or we can look at it as the square root of 24 times 4. So there's a perfect square. But we can further break this down, or we could look at it as the square root of, let's see, 6 times 4, which is 24 times 4. Alright, and so now I don't think you can break 6 down into any perfect squares, but what you can do is you can take both of those 4 out. So that should give us a value of 2. Alright, so that should give us a value of 2. Star this one because I need to think of a better way to explain why that is. 18. The solution set to the equation x squared minus 4x is equal to 0 is, well, we have x squared minus 4x, is equal to 0. And so what you can do in this situation is you can complete the square. So we're going to take you can complete the square. That's the long way, but actually there's a faster way. You can just factor. So you can factor out an x, and you can have an x minus 4. So you're just taking out an x out of the equation. So you have x times x minus 4 is equal to 0. And just evaluate both terms. So x is equal to 0. X is equal to 0. That's one solution. And you have x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 on each side. That gives you 4's cancel out. X is equal to 4. So their solutions are 0 and 4. Question 19. which is the solution set of x squared minus x minus 20 is equal to 0. Now we have to factor this quadratic again. What's two numbers that add to -1 multiplied -20? That's going to be x minus 5, x plus 4 equals 0. -5 plus 4 is -1, and -5 times 4 is -20. Let's evaluate both. X minus 5 equals 0. X is equal to 5. X plus 4 equals 0. X is equal to -4. Solution to the quadratic equation is 2x squared plus 5x. Minus 1 is equal to 0. So in this case, we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula, because this is not factorable, is -b squared plus or minus, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's factor that. Negative b, that's going to be -5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared, which is 25, minus 4 times 2 times -1, all over 2a. So all over 2 times 2. It's going to simplify to -5 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times -1 is -8, minus -8 is plus 8. So 25 plus 8 is 33, plus or minus the square root of 33 all over 4. And so that's going to be D. -5 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 4. Alright. Which expression is the solution for the equation 2x squared minus x is equal to 7? So once again, when we rearrange the terms, it's going to be 2x squared minus x minus 7 equals 0. Now that we've set the quadratic equal to 0, we can see this is not factorable. There's no factors of -7 that add to -1. And so because of that, we can use the quadratic formula. So we're going to have, once again, -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so we have -1, so we'll have +1 plus or minus So we have positive 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared. So 1 minus 4 times 2 times negative 7 all over 2a, so all over 2 times 2. That's going to be equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 2 times 2, 4 times 2 is 8, times negative 7 is negative 56. Negative 50 minus negative 66 makes it positive 56. So 1 plus 56 is 57. So 1 plus or minus the square root of 57 all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So we have 1 plus or minus the square root of 57 all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So that's going to be answer choice D. So that's 21. Let's work on 22. Solve for x. Square root of 3x minus 5 is equal to 5. You have to remove the square root, so let's square both sides. 3x minus 5 is equal to 25. Add 5 to each side to isolate x. So 3x is equal to 30, and then we divide each side by 3, and x should be equal to 10. Question 23. What is the domain of the function f of x is equal to 4 over square root of x plus 1? Alright, so this is two situations. One, you have when the denominator can't be equal 0, and you cannot take the square root of the square root of this term, so that term, the term inside the square root has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to have two terms to kind of piece out here. We have the term x plus 1. That term has to be greater than or equal to 0. So let's solve that real quick. X has to be greater than or equal to negative 1. But we also have the term for the entire denominator. I have to say that the square root of x plus 1 cannot equal 0. Square both sides. X plus 1 cannot equal 0. And then subtract 1 from each side. X cannot equal negative 1. So I have these two terms, and they both have to be true. X has to be greater than or equal to negative 1, and x cannot equal negative 1. And when you take these two into account, what you ultimately get for your domain, so taking both of these into account, what you get for your domain is that x has to be greater than 1. Because while this is the case, when you find this rule, you can't have the greater than or equal to sign because x cannot be equal to -1. Also my fault for keeping things off the screen. Number 24. Which is the domain of f of x that equals the square root of x minus 4 over the set of real numbers. So we just have the square root of x minus 4. That's our function. And find the domain. Alright. So what we have to do is say this term must be greater than or equal to 0, so x minus 4 must be greater than or equal to 0. X must be greater than or equal to 4. Was I selecting? Oh, sorry. I didn't actually put in the correct answer. So wait. That has to be right, -1. Sorry, -1, -1, -1. Sorry, just realized I made a careless mistake for 23. So even if you know the math, just a tangent here, but one, make sure you don't make careless mistakes, or at least I'm not at that point yet, but be able to catch your careless mistakes. X is greater than 4. Domain. Alright, so x is greater than or equal to 4. That's option B. So let's go to 25. For 25, you have this graph here, and remember the domain is the set of all x values. So the domain is the set of all x values. And because the domain is the set of all x values, we just take the lowest bound of the domain, which is 0, and we go to the highest bound of the domain, which is 12. So lowest x value is 0, highest x going to be 12. And so the lowest bound is 0, the highest bound is 12, and just make know the domain is the x variable, not the y variable. So x and 12. So that's option B. 0 is less than x is less than 12. Which equation is represented by the accompanying graph? Alright, so 26, you have your graph, and this is going to be the absolute value of x minus 3 plus 1, because you go moving right 3, up 1, so you're moving from the origin, right 3, up 1, so those are the shifts, and then you have an absolute value function, and this is what an absolute value function looks like. This is what the absolute value function looks like. Absolute value function. The reason why is because with the absolute value of 1 and negative 1 is the same. How much battery do I have left? About 42 minutes remaining. Okay, I can get it done in 42 minutes. So that's 25, that's 26. What is the vertex of the graph in the equation y is equal to 3x squared plus 6x plus 1? So I'm going to do two ways for this. One is for finding the vertex. The x coordinate, I believe it's equal to b over 2a. So it's going to be, negative b over 2a. That's going to be equal to negative 6 over 2 times 3, which is going to be negative 6 over 6, which is going to be equal to negative 1. So for a vertex, our x coordinate is going to be negative 1. And so we can plug that into the equation. 3 times negative 1 squared plus 6 times negative 1 plus 1, and that's going to be equal to negative 1 squared is 1, so it's going to be 3 minus 6 plus 1, so that's going to be negative 3 plus 1 is equal to negative 2. So the vertex is going to be negative 1, negative 2. You can also just graph a function. What was that, 27? So 3x squared plus 7x plus 5. Graph that. You can see that the graph is clearly negative 1. Oh, wait. 3x squared plus 6x plus 1, my bad. You can see the graph is negative 1, negative 2 right here. It's the only clear option. What is the y-intercept of the parabola whose equation is y equals x squared plus 7x plus 5? So when you're finding the y-intercept is going to be the value so that's going to be your x value is 0, and then you find that corresponding y value. So when x is 0, you can have y is equal to 0 squared plus 7 times 0 plus 5. So this doesn't mean anything, this doesn't mean anything, and the answer is going to be 5. So y-intercept is going to be 0, 5. Alright. So the y-intercept's 5. 29, we have a circle, in the center is 7, 0. This is h, this is k. And the radius is 4. The standard form of circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we have x minus h, which is 7 squared, plus y minus k, which is 0 squared, is equal to r, which is 4 squared. Alright, so, and this can simplify to x minus 7 squared plus y minus 0 is just y, so y squared is equal to, 4 squared is equal to 16. So that's option D. 30. Alright, I'll try to wrap this up as soon as I can wrap this up relatively soon. So, what are the coordinates of the center of the circle whose equation is x minus 3 squared? So if our circle equation is x minus 3 squared plus y plus 5 squared is equal to 16, this is the coordinates for the center of the circle so remember, the standard form of circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, and our center is hk. So our center is hk, and we have x minus h and y minus k. We have to multiply negative sign by each of these terms to find the actual coordinates. So that's going to be x minus 3 squared y plus 5. So the coordinates are actually going to be positive 3, negative 5. Positive 3, negative 5. Yep, that's option choice D. 31. So we have a right triangle. 12, 20 degrees here. And we have x. So, if you remember, so, toa, especially ka, cosine of x is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And so for this angle, 12 is the adjacent side, and x is the hypotenuse. So the cosine of 20 degrees is equal to 12 over x, which means that the cosine of 20 equals 12 over x is the correct answer. Alright, with right triangle ABC, the measure of angle C is 90 degrees. Measure of angle A is 55 degrees, and the measure of by induction, the measure of angle B is going to be 180 minus 90 minus 55. So that should be 35. Because 35 plus 55 is 90, and then 90 plus 90 is 180, and there's 180 degrees in the triangle. 180 degrees in a triangle. And so CA equals 10. What is the length of AB to the nearest integer? Okay, so to find AB, we can actually use the same logic that we did from the first time, because AB is the hypotenuse. So the cosine of 55 degrees is equal to 10 over AB, which is the hypotenuse. So that means that AB multiplied by AB times the cosine of 55 degrees is equal to 10, which means that AB is equal to 10 over the cosine of 55 degrees. So this is where we'll need your calculator. We'll have clear, go to mode, we're analyzing degrees, not radians. And we'll have 10 divided by the cosine of 55. And the answer is going to be 17.43. This is, and so when you use your calculator, just point out, notice that's going to be a calc input. And the answer is going to be 17.43. And the closest integer would be 17. Alright, and that is correct. 33. How much time do I have left? 31 minutes, okay. Let me do this. In the right triangle ABC shown below, AB equals 18.3 and BC equals 11.2. The table triangle below. 90 degrees, 18.3, 11.2. What is the measure of angle A nearest a tenth of a degree? So angle A is, so remember, so TOA again. TOA is, so tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent. So, sorry, that's not technically correct. The tangent of an angle is going to be the opposite side over the adjacent side. So what that means, tan, so the tangent is opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of angle A is going to be equal to 11.2 over 18.3. So the tangent of angle A is going to be 11.2 over 18.3. It's going to be 0.612. And so to find angle A, we're going to find the inverse tangent of each side. So the inverse tangent of the tangent of angle A is equal to the inverse tangent of 0.612. We can find the inverse tangent of the last value, and that gives us 31.46, which is closest to 31.5. For question 34, theta is angle in standard to bit position and passes through the point on the unit circle negative 1/2 root 3 over 2. Negative 1/2 root 3 over 2. So that's negative 1/2, that's root 3 over 2. And we need to find a possible value for theta. Alright, so I guess the main way you could do this is just pick cosine or sine, but I mean the way that I can do this is that I just know, I just have with unit circle memorized. The sine of 120 is root 3 over 2, and the cosine of 120 is going to be equal to negative 1/2. Alright. So that's going to be, the answer is going to be 120. You can check this with your calculator. We'll cover this one in trigonometry unit. And for 35, we have a unit circle, and also just looking at that point, you can see that that's more than 90, less than 180, so it's not 60. It's not 60, it's not 330, it's either 120 or 150. Okay, 35. Position is 1/2 root 3 over 2. 1/2 root 3 over 2. Once again, just unit circle memorize the sine of 60 degrees is equal to root 3 over 2, and the cosine of 60 degrees is equal to 1/2. If you really wanted to, so you could also just say what's the inverse cosine of 0.5 mode radians. Well, actually, no, we're in degree mode. Sorry. 60 degrees inverse sine of root 3 over 2 60. So the answer is 60. Alright. Submit. Okay. Alright. So that should be the video. So, the reason why the score isn't there is because I have to grade some of the audio responses, so it doesn't automatically give you points for that. But that should be the video, and other than that, I'll make a correction video if anything else comes up.